the Mass of the Liturgy of the Word, the Mass of the catechumens. There's all sorts of words for the first part of the Mass. It goes all the way from the beginning to the sermon / the creed. The creed is kind of a little in-betweener. A nice little palate cleanser, because maybe the sermon was heretical, maybe it wasn't. But if nothing else, the creed was there to just make sure you covered all your bases. Or if it was, so a nice little just tweener there. And some, I think in like the 28, doesn't it come before the sermon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have the creed come before the sermon, but that just makes for judgy congregations. I don't like that.
Actually, the sermon is like almost right before the canon of Mass.
Yeah.
Right before the Sanctus.
Yeah, wow.
It's like really late in the thing.
Yeah, exactly. See, I want to remind you of the faith after I preach, so you're there. That's fresh in your mind, rather than saying, "I don't know, Father, that was pretty close." So I like to be, we're all on the same page going into the Mass. So I was reminded very quickly, and as I was going through this, that this is essentially the way the old Latin Mass was put together. Because when I went to go find the post-communion prayers, the word I'm looking for, I was like, when was that standardized? Because in the Latin Mass, it's not. It's actually meant to match the collect. Mm-hmm. So kind of like opening up a book, reading and then closing, So you have the same thing as going out. And I thought, well, no, it's pretty much been standardized since the 1549 prayer book, the first prayer book that Thomas Cranmer wrote. He standardized it. And so then I had to go back and remember the fact that what he did was simplify everything. He kind of took out a lot of the things that we're going to cover today and a lot of things that we previously did. He just said these are too much. We want it to be simple and dignified, and the ceremonial had gotten too much for him, and so kind of dial it back a bit.
So before that, it was the Latin Mass.
Correct.
With the Roman Church.
Correct. In the English church, that was the Sarum Mass. So you'll see lots of British hoity-toities who refer to the Sarum Mass, and then that's where the color blue comes from, and they had a different color scheme. It's the British were kind of the. Pardon the pun, they were out on an island all by themselves. But but as it is here, this is the Latin Mass, and as it goes forward, it's been here's the English Missal that this is a really good reference book, a very bad missal, because all the stuff in the back. Very good for the readings and stuff like that, but then you get to the canon of the Mass. Do you have this copy?
No, I don't have that copy.
Oh, God.
I've used that copy, though.
It's
hard to use.
Yeah, it's atrocious because they failed to change the color of the rubrics. So rubrics red, mean red writing, essentially, which tells the priest what to do, where to make the sign of the cross, or stuff like that. And this, they printed it in black and white. So if you take off the color, then what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to say is the exact same color. So you have absolutely no clue unless you really go through it. Like I had to go through and highlight everything that is rubrics, and so it just made this book just worthless as an actual missal.
They were saving money on ink.
That they sure were. Sure glad it cost. I forget how much it cost me because I bought it full price in seminary, and as soon as I saw that, I was not very happy because missals are never cheap. And as a poor seminarian, I was very frustrated that I just bought a reference book. So the prayers of the faithful, or the prayers of the people is what we've changed them to. This is in the liturgy of the first 3 centuries. So what they would kind of do is it was the Mass of the Faithful as opposed to the Mass of the catechumens. So that's why it's called the prayers of the faithful, because we stopped kicking out the catechumens, and so we've kind of changed it up to now it's the prayers of the people. So, but what they would do is essentially they would pray for the catechumens as they're kicking them out, and then say, okay, now that we know we're in a safe space here, we can now pray for our parishioners. We can pray for those who need prayers. And so these are the ones, the ones who were going to receive communion. They're the ones that kind of gathered around because you didn't have to receive communion. It got to the point where people were receiving so little that their big devotion there was going to be seeing the elevation of the host. And so that got to be the pinnacle of the Mass. Not the reception of it, just the seeing of it. Because, they hadn't done all the proper preparation to get in a right state to do this, so you don't want to receive unfaithfully. So you just see it, and that would be enough. And then people would kind of run in, see the elevation, and run out. And so that has been changed with the more regular reception of communion. But this is what it was, and like it is with the reason the deacon does it is because he's the servant of the people. Our deacon is a very good deacon at these things. He goes out amongst the people, knows all of these things, and so he can go and tell us. So he's the one who should be able to, when it's come time to pray for this person. Well, this person's sick, this person's sick, this person's sick, this person's sick. That's the role of the deacon, is to be able to go out and do that. So that's one of the reasons why he's doing that. And as far as liturgically. Because it's no fun if you're doing a Mass. So you have your low Mass, which is, everything's kind of slimmed down. Which is, and it's to try to do things more quickly is what it is. And so you can do that when you have one priest. But when you have more people, it's no fun if one person is just doing everything. So you give each person a role that only they can fulfill. And but then you have the modern understanding of the prayers of the people being read by a layman, by the lay Eucharistic minister or someone else, some appointed person. And my practice has been kind of what my predecessor did at my former rector did at St. John's is if he gave something to a lay person that was proper to when he was doing it all by himself, he dispersed it to everyone, and if he gave it to a layman, he's not going to then take it back because they've already gotten the practice of doing. That's why at the 8 o'clock. When it was just me reading it, now I've given it off to the deacon. But in the 10:30, we still have the lay Eucharistic minister doing it because I'm not going to take it away. So that even though it's, I just make a mental note that it's proper to the deacon. But more people doing things is more better. And so then you have you go forward into the offertory act. What we've inserted here is the confession. That way we can be in a right state, or at least a tolerable state before receiving communion. So in this offertory act, this is all of the things that we're doing in preparation. This is when the offertory hymn or the offertory chant that in the minor propers, that comes in to cover the movement. There's stuff that you got to do to separate it up. And so what the church came up with initially to do was to chant hymns at one point, but the only hymns that they had were the Psalter, and so they'd chant portions of the Psalter, and they would make them elaborate enough to be able to take the time that you spent. And so what you end up doing here is you have the priest and the altar party going at one pace, and the choir going at a different pace. And so the problem is that if one finishes before the other, things can start to get out of order and lead to chaos. So what the church decided to do is essentially tone down the prayers of the priest. And so, like all of these prayers here are not. I only say them aloud when things aren't happening with the organ at the 10:30. I say them at the 8 o'clock because there's just nothing going on. And like we said last time, there's just nothing more awkward than dead air.
Just silence.
Yeah, people just don't know what to do, and so I'm doing things, and so I learned it from a liturgy professor at Nashotah House, that whenever it was quiet, he would say the prayers out loud. And so you're saying them out loud, and you're doing the various things. But what the priest was supposed to do when the choir took over and was singing the offertory text is he would just say them quietly. And then what they have is essentially what is the word here? It's called an ekphonesis. It's a Greek word, means an out vocalized thing. So it's just, and it's normally the priest would chant "World Without End," saying, "I'm done now. We can go on." And so you have these random before I understood what was going on, you just have the priest chanting out randomly, "World Without End," and then you respond, "Amen." And then he, goes back and starts praying again. Like, what are you doing? There's little prayers attached to them, and he's just signifying to everyone else, "I'm done now. We can. The next part of the mass comes up. Be prepared for it." And so, one of the fun things that they would do is, going back to offertory, everyone before they would bring money, they would bring bread and wine and stuff like that. Everyone would bring their own little family portion of it, and then you bring it all forward. And so you need time while the priest is breaking it all up. You need some, that takes a bit. And so you get that all, and then you get it all set up, and then you have another opportunity to cleanse your hands from just messing with all the food here and the wine and stuff like that. Cleanse your hands again, and then you're ready. And there's a fun little story here of this woman who comes up to receive communion, and she recognized the bread that she bought and had a little giggle attack. She's like, I made that. Oh, that's pretty cool, because you have all the people there, and so you don't know. It's meant so that you're not supposed to know whose is what. You're all one body of Christ. But she's like, hey, I recognize that. And so she had a little case of the giggles.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so let's see here. But that's what that is. It's just a time to prepare everything, and then we cover that with offertory, with an offertory anthem. And then here we have the offertory prayers, and the ones I use come out of here. But there's some recent ones that I think you do, right?
When I'm offering the gifts, yeah.
Yeah.
So that, and you probably have heard both, I would imagine. So the one that comes out of here, the one that I do, because it's the one that's stuck in my head.
That's the easiest way.
That's the easiest way to do that. So it's "Bless, O Lord."
Right.
No. Okay. So "Bless, O Lord, this bread
And
made by human hands." Wow, I can't.
I always remember the wine one is blessed art thou, O Lord God, the unitas. This wine, the fruit of vine and work of human hands.
That become for us the cup of salvation, which is this similar to "Bless, O Lord, this bread, fruit of the earth, work of human hands, that will become for us the bread of heaven."
And then since they've since even the Romans have now simplified their mass in Vatican II. So now they've gotten rid of those minor propers being sung. So now you just have the priest talking. So if the priest is talking, then you can still make it an interaction with the people. So the people, when he said, you get to a part at the end, it would become for us the
cup of salvation,
the
and the bread
cup
of heaven.
then
You'd say amen.
then the people respond, "Blessed be God forever."
Mhm.
So that's
Right.
an opportunity to bring everybody in.
When I do real small masses, like if I have an altar at home where I sometimes do masses and broadcast them. The people in the room with me, because there's only maybe 6 or 7 at the most, will respond that way. Also at the elevation during the canon of the Mass, the elevation of the host and the elevation of the cup, blessed be God forever. So we don't often do that in larger congregations.
Yeah.
Usually they become prayers that are said sort of under your voice, right? They're still said. Now, the very end of those set of prayers, though, is exactly the same between this and that. So it's interesting how they've sort of diverged and also stayed the same in some places.
Yeah. So and it's just an offer. And they weren't always there. They were always just a private devotion of the priest. And it just got to be that everyone was kind of saying their own, but then when one priest teaches another priest, he says, "These are the prayers I say here." All of a sudden they become kind of standardized, and then you have these here, and so they just get written down and included into the Mass. So that's where the majority of the secret prayers come in. They're called secret just because the priest is not trying to make a broadcast of them. He just says them under sotto voce, under his voice. And so there's lots of stuff like that were at one point, if you're going to offer something to God, then priests just feel the need to say a prayer along to it rather than just holding it up, putting it down. So now you hold it up, say a little prayer, then you make a little cross as you set it down, and so there's the practical aspect, like I said, always comes first. Then eventually a popular devotion comes in and kind of fleshes it out a little bit.
Yeah, if you want some more coffee.
Yes, please.
So what's interesting is that while we use the prayer book or the missal, the Roman Church now also makes a prayer book. They make one every year, and they call it the People's Missal.
I think
that's
so,
what
yeah.
they call it. But every year they make one, and it's got all of the hymns, all of the prayers for every single Sunday through the whole year, and then they make another one the next year. They're all paperback, and they're about this thick. And a set of them at the nursing
Most of
home.
them, I'd say, don't about that thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and this one maybe has more, maybe Holy Days or something in it as well. But if you look at that and look at their Mass from beginning to end, from all the way from the liturgy of the Word through the canon of the Mass to the post-communion prayer and dismissal, it's nearly identical to our prayer book. I mean, like, there's a few minor things, but like nearly identical. Because that's where our original prayer books came from, was let's simplify some of these things, but the order and most of those things, exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it's remained that way.
And then one of the things that when you're offering the gifts, you still have certain things, like the priest makes the offering of the bread, but the deacon is then he's the minister of the chalice. So then when the priest offers the chalice to just put it on the thing, the deacon is to then go up and hold his elbow type thing, and all of a sudden the prayers change to "we offer this" rather than "I offer this" thing. It's now "we offer this" because there's now 2 people doing it, and so it's just stuff like that to show you who's all in charge of what. It just kind of does that, and then you have the incensing of the altar, and you add a little bit more liturgy to that. So the first part, when you come in and sense the altar, you're only sensing the altar and then the priest, and it's showing dignity to the altar, showing where the sacrifice will be had, showing dignity to the minister. But then it's also, you have the sense of purifying that, so it's made ready for the act of what you're about to do. Same thing here, but now instead of sensing just the altar area, you start with the gifts, and then you sense the altar, then you sense the priest. Well, then there's still other people involved in it. So then you sense the deacon, then you sense the subdeacon, then you sense the choir and any other ministers that are going, and then you sense the people. So it's saying that we're all included in this one sacrifice of the Mass here. Whereas before, it's just you're only doing the people as they talk, and but then it starts to incorporate. So again, you see who's included in this part as we're going forward. And then again, the secrets, it said before the secrets, the celebrant asks for the prayers of the people, pray brethren, and the minister or those around do as he asks, is very medieval edition. So as it goes, you have the stuff at the very beginning. You have the Didache, you have Justin Martyr's account of what's going on in the Mass. It's, very basic, because they're just figuring it all out. And then you start adding things eventually, and then they get worked in. And then the last part, we'll see if we have time to get to it in the very end of the Mass. There's more things than we do. It used to just be that you say communion, and then the deacon comes up and says, "All right, bye guys." Says it very formally, but he's like, "All right, the Mass part is ending." My favorite is the actual translation of et missa est, is the dismissal part is here.
Always heard the Mass is over, the service begins.
Yeah, but at the beginning, it was just the dismissal is here. Go away. It's like, we've reached this part. Bye, guys.
Later, y'all.
The Mass is supposed to depart in peace.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all sorts of things that happen along the way. So the preface of the Mass, as we're going through, this is now we're in what's called the canon of the Mass, and it starts off, just like the beginning of "The Lord be with you," and then we do it a little bit more because we're doing a little bit more. And originally, this first part of the consecration prayers, the preface, was very long, and it contained a list of all the benefits for which we thank God, beginning with creation, going through most of the Old Testament, and so coming to Isaiah, and his mention of the angels and archangels and all the company of heaven who forever sing this hymn. So it always ended there. But the preface used to be apparently a lot longer, because again, when you don't have TV and you have plenty of Sunday left,
Your TV is your phone.
this is way before that. This is
Okay.
this is 34 AD, starting there. Going.
I think you had a phone at first.
No. This is going way back to the beginning. That you just had more time to dedicate to prayer, and so you went on. But as things started to get going, and people were like, "Well, can we shorten this up a little bit?" Or the priest said, "Yeah, maybe let's cut out a little bit here." Especially if you're doing this in the midst of possibly being martyred for the faith. Let me say a quick mass here. But if I gotta, go through all of this, it takes a bit longer. So let's streamline this a little bit. And so then but it always ended with the same, therefore with angels and archangels. And the proper preface is the preface which is proper for that day, which is, it varies. It used to, they always kind of did it seasonally. Or you have your feast days, and then they would kind of sprinkle that in, what's the martyr of the thing, but then they just kind of got it in, and so this is kind of a focus area, that just to show you that we're in a different season, and so they would add a bit more.
Of course, nowadays, if you listen to the preface, you will hear the theme of Holy Scripture for that day, or the primary focus point, if you will, for that day. And the proper preface brings that to us right before we actually hear all of that Holy Scripture.
Yeah, it's meant to, again, like I said, you have your collect at the beginning, and then you have your post-communion prayer at the end, and then you have your proper preface in the middle of it. So it's all meant to have the same theme going through it.
And
Yeah, they're all meant to just focus on that point, and then that way there's a reason for being, rather than just, well, we're going to come here and say some prayers, and then we're going to go out. No, it's all pointed toward the same thing. And then you have the Sanctus, and I was always confused by the fact that you said in the if you look in the rubrics at the Sanctus, the Holy, 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 it says, and then the second portion of the prayer may be added. I'm like, well, it's always added. Because I've never heard it not added. So, but apparently it was two prayers initially, and so that's why I've actually broken it up. And it was that Benedictus was added, making the idea to be your right before making it a whole reenaction of Holy Week. So you start off right before Mass. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, Palm Sunday. Then you're going in, and the words of institution culminating in the sacrifice of the Mass. And it was initially kind of call and response type thing. That's why I've kind of broken it down in the sung portion. But there are apparently some people who don't add that second part because it adds too much of a focus on Calvary. It makes it. They saw that blessed is he who comes, and they're like, wait. What we're doing here is just because Jesus told. Nothing happens here, and so they will skip that part. I've just never seen anybody do it because I don't think they're thinking it through. But that's the reason I make sure to add it and even break it out more, because it's a sacrifice. Now, we get to the canon of the Mass here. So you have your or we don't. We will pause there because there's no way I'm getting through all of this stuff, and I have to pick up my my family. So pause there. Tune in next time. We will get to the canon of the Mass.
Baptized.
That's right.
Same.
That's right.
I know Tony's not here, but if you